Today we're going to talk about when it's okay to break a no contact rule. Now this has actually been a topic that's been open to debate in our private Facebook support group recently. Now we used to have very specific rules, but we have since changed some of those rules and ultimately tightened them up. So what I'm going to do today is actually talk to you a little bit about what the no contact rule is, and specifically the situations where it's actually okay to break it prematurely. All right, so let's first start by defining what the no contact rule is. Pretty much the no contact rule is a period of time, usually between 21 or 45 days, where you're going to ignore your ex on purpose. Now, you should not be using the no contact rule as a way to make your ex miss you by simply using some sort of reverse psychological ploy. Rather, you should be using this time during the no contact rule as a break away from your ex so that you're focusing on yourself to outgrow them. Now, generally what happens though is the no contact rule in and of itself does have some psychological reactance factors in play. In other words, you're taking away your ex's behavioral freedom of communicating with you, and they usually don't take too kindly to that. So that's oftentimes why you'll get these angry responses during no contact because, well, your ex is throwing a temper tantrum. Yet what's interesting is we find that close to 80% of our clients will break the no contact rule, at least one time. Why? Well, because the no contact rule is not only difficult on your ex for not talking to you, it's also difficult on you for not talking to your ex. So it takes an incredible amount of discipline to stay true to the no contact rule from start to finish. Now, we've done thousands of videos, well, not thousands, but hundreds of videos about the no contact rule and why it's important and why it is one of the predominant strategies in the entire industry when it comes to breakups, no matter if you're trying to get the ex back or trying to get over the ex. Now, what's important though is what happens if you break the no contact rule too many times. So what happens? Well, let's say that you were doing a no contact rule on me and you just couldn't stay away from it. You had to contact me. So maybe about 14 days in of the no contact rule, you break it to respond to me when I reach out to you, or you reach out to me trying to figure out what I'm up to. This is considered a break of no contact. But what's interesting is, well, usually the predominant strategy is once you break no contact, you have to start over from the beginning of no contact. But what happens is if you continue to break the no contact rule in the same way, each time you have to redo it, it loses a little bit of effectiveness. And usually around the fourth or fifth time that you fail no contact and have to start it over again, guess what happens? The no contact rule is no longer the same strategy that it was when you first tried it out. It's tired. It's a little like going to a movie, loving the movie, then watching the movie again, and loving the movie still, but it's not quite as good as the first time that you saw it, but you still love it, so you come back to the movie. If you just continue that process, guess what? The movie becomes dull because you can predict everything that's going to happen. Same principle applies here to the no contact rule. Now, with that being said, most people look at the no contact rule as the strategy in which you are never supposed to talk to your ex, but that's not true. There are a few certain amount of circumstances in which you are allowed to break the no contact prematurely. So let's talk about what those are. Now, one of the biggest common misconceptions that people have is something we call the golden factor. Oftentimes, this golden factor applies where you are using a no contact rule on your ex and your ex immediately reaches out to you and tells you that they want you back. Now, in most cases, you are allowed to break the no contact rule if your ex is reaching out to you and begging for you back. Because if you're using the no contact rule with the intent of getting them back, well, guess what? You've just succeeded in your approach. But this is incredibly rare, and I don't think I've seen this happen in years. Yet sometimes what happens, this golden factor flaw occurs where people misconstrue the circumstances. When we say your ex asks for you back during the no contact rule, we're like literally saying your ex says, I want to get back together right now. Or in some cases, they'll show up to your doorstep and ask you back to be together right now. What this doesn't include is, hey, I want to talk. Or something like, hey, there's something I want to get off my chest. These are usually just ploys to get you to respond during the no contact rule, so not even that is enough. Even in situations where they express that they're sorry for their role in the breakup and they recant the fact that they treated you this poor way is not enough to break the no contact rule. Real quick, I want to say that if you're new to this YouTube channel or you're trying to figure out what you should be doing to get your ex back and you're trying to learn if you even have a chance in your specific circumstance, probably the smartest thing for you to do is actually stop by our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, or take our Ex Recovery Chances quiz that can be found at exboyfriendrecovery.com. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, taking that free quiz is super easy to do. All you have to simply do is look in the description link below this YouTube video and click on the link you see there. It will take you directly to the quiz where you can fill it out and get an easy answer on what you should be doing going forward and overall what your chances look like in your specific situation. All right, so let's get you back to the video. So what is enough to break the no contact rule? Well, let's start with reason number one. You live together with your ex. So sometimes when you're using a no contact rule, you will have no choice but to communicate with your ex. And living together with them is certainly one of those situations. So what is the protocol if you live together with your ex and you're doing a no contact rule on them? Well, you're gonna still stick to the no contact rule as much as humanly possible, but there are going to be circumstances where you are going to be forced to communicate with them. Generally speaking, if you are forced to communicate with them, keep it strictly about that communication and end the conversation immediately and go back to your life. That is the key. So in a way, this is a form of limited no contact. And with that same frame of mind, let's move on to reason number two. Reason number two, you share a child with your ex. All right, so you share a child with your ex. Obviously, if you share a child with your ex and you're using a no contact rule on your ex, you are going to have to communicate about that child, especially if you are separated and we need to talk about who's going to take the child to this place or who's going to take the child to that place, or what happens if your child's on the playground and falls off and you have to rush them to the emergency room. Well, maybe you need to contact your ex for things like that. So ultimately, when you share a child with your ex, you are going to be forced to break a no contact rule. In other words, you're going to be forced to do a limited no contact rule where basically you only communicate with your ex about the child and that is it. In other words, if your ex tries to take the conversation into uncharted waters, you do not engage in those uncharted waters. You keep it strictly about business. Reason number three, you work together with your ex. I hope you're noticing the theme here. Most of the time in no contact, when you are going to be forced to interact with your ex, you are allowed to break no contact. We are flexible in that way. So in other words, we're being a little bit more strict about our conditions on breaking the no contact rule now because we find so many people take advantage of it. So how does working with your ex really look like? Well, if you work with your ex, that means you are going to be forced to communicate with them if you have to communicate with them. The goal here with no contact is not to be rude to your ex. It's to basically say, you know what, I'm not interested in talking to you. I will talk to you when absolutely necessary. I will be nice to you when I have to talk to you in those absolutely necessary circumstances. But other than that, I'm going to focus on me and mine. So that's how you need to approach working with your ex. So if your boss forces you to communicate with your ex to work together on a project, work together, but keep it strictly business. Quite literally in this case, keep it about business. Reason number four, you accidentally run into your ex. Now this is where it gets a little difficult. The key word here is accidentally. I can literally tell you I have seen hundreds, maybe even thousands of women manufacture run-ins with their ex. They know where their ex is, they know their patterns of walking and their patterns of work, and they just happen to be in the area. This is not an accidental run-in. An accidental run-in needs to be authentic for this to matter. So, what happens? Well, this is where we get kind of into that spicy territory. Let's imagine that you accidentally run into your ex. You were going about your merry business, and lo and behold, there they are. They have run into you. You have a nice, quick conversation with them, and then kind of keep moving on. The question now becomes, do you have to start no contact rule over from the beginning, or do you just consider this kind of a limited no contact? And for this, we have some controversial decisions. My personal opinion is if you did accidentally run into your ex, maybe it's in your best interest to start no contact over if you're towards the beginning of no contact. If you're towards the end of no contact, let's say you're doing a 30-day no contact rule and on day 26, your ex accidentally runs into you. I think in this case, you can just complete the no contact rule out until you get to the end and then reach out and start the texting phase, which, kind of a secret here, the texting phase is actually going to be more difficult than no contact, but we'll get into that later. But let's say you're on day 7 of no contact and your ex literally, authentically, accidentally runs into you, meaning you did not manufacture this, they actually ran into you and you had no idea this was going to happen. In this case, I would start the no contact rule over from the beginning. Hey, you made it to the end of this video. Thank you so much. Now, if you have some time, I would really highly recommend that you check out our Ex Recovery Chances quiz on our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com. Now, if you're interested in taking this quiz and figuring out roughly what type of chance you have of getting your ex back, simply look in the description link below and click the link you see there. I'll see you next time.